We are entering an era where intelligence that's both artificial as well as human has become the most valuable asset. And it's now time that we decode how these things can be brought in together and we can get an answer towards it. So this session specifically that we'll be talking about is called the Intelligence Economy, where AI meets human impact. It explores how artificial intelligence is not replacing humans, but it's reshaping how we work and how we decide and how we create value. Now, to start and to begin with this session, I'd like to invite our host and the moderator for this session, Mr. Kumaar Bagrodia, founder and CEO of NeuroLeap, to please join us here on stage. So I'll request you to please join us here on stage. And while Sir join us here on stage, let's clap and let's let them know that we are super excited for this session and we're really looking forward to get answers for the questions in our mind. A big warm welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here. I will now like to invite our speaker here on stage, and I'll request our moderator to please felicitate and welcome them. I'd like to request Mr. Srikanth Velamakanni, co-founder of Group Chief Executive and Executive Vice President Chairman of Fractal, to please join us here on stage. A big warm welcome, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, let's pump up the energy. We've just come after the lunch, and it's time to just let everyone know that we're looking forward to listen, to hear, and to get the answers. A big warm welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. I'll request our moderator to please welcome our guest here on stage with a bouquet. Once again, welcome, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to clap, and I'm sure that now we'll get the answers we all have been looking for, how AI is creating value in humans' life. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you all know you're in a session on AI. This is not Virender Sehwag on stage. Yeah? If somebody wants to, run for the exit, you can do that right now. But thank you, Srikanth, for coming in. Srikanth Velamakanni is currently in the process of raising close to 5,000 crores in his IPO. And in the middle of that process, he's taken a flight to come to Jaipur just to be at the TiE Global Summit just for this session. A huge round of applause for that commitment, please. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we start, badgering him and requesting him for, getting us a discounted rate on his stocks, let's get on to AI first. So how many of you have heard of fractal analytics? Okay, so about 20-25%. For the others, while Srikanth will talk about the company, so Fractal is one of the most accomplished enterprise AI companies coming out of India. Srikanth co-founded the company 25 years ago, and they are hitting a big milestone, which is this month they'll have their IPO out, and they'll be a listed company within January 2026. Amongst some of the use cases and products that they've been developing, and I have first-hand experience one or two of them, and I'm going to, Srikanth, ask you about them. So tell us about the Vaidya.ai. So you are using an interface which is WhatsApp-based to help people, actually use AI like a doctor. So tell us, how did that come about? What are some of its capabilities today, and where is the scale?
Yeah, thank you, Kumar, for the warm introduction. Vaidya was born with the idea of building a medical model. Think of it as something that you can use before and after a doctor visit. And today, our best way of getting advice on medical front is going to Google or going to WebMD and asking questions. Lately, you've seen that AI tools are starting to become really good at answering medical questions, and now I think ChatGPT and Gemini, etc., are already providing you pretty solid level of understanding. So we thought, what if we could build a healthcare-focused AI app called Vaidya, which can give you really credible medical advice, but also store that information and give you a longitudinal view of how health is progressing. So what happened last year to this year to next year, and give you a sense of what to do, how to, let's say you have only 10 minutes to brief a doctor, or if you can create a briefing sheet for the doctor that he or she can use to give you advice. So that was the idea. And we said, why don't we make it available on WhatsApp? Because it's the easiest form people are very used to using WhatsApp. So for example, I was in, along with my family members, I was in Coorg last year for summer break, and my daughter got bit by a little, leech. Okay, I did not know it was a leech. I mean, I could have guessed, but what I did was I took a picture of that and put it on WhatsApp. Very poor internet, by the way. WhatsApp was working, but really internet was not very strong. I said, this animal bit me, what should I do? And it very quickly gave me a bunch of instructions. It said, don't put salt on it. Like most people think salt is a good way of solving for leech, but it knew that I have to put soap and water. What exactly you have to do? It gave you the steps. So that is the idea of Vaidya. And now when you think about where Vaidya is going next, what we are thinking of doing is, along with the India AI mission, we want to build India's best reasoning AI model and then deploy it at India scale. Right? Imagine 1.4 billion people. I was meeting with some of the officials at BMC in Mumbai, which is a Mumbai Municipal Corporation. And they were saying that just BMC-run hospitals have 8 million OPD visits every year. 8 million OPD visits. So just imagine if each of these OPD visits could be slightly better, because before you went into the doctor, you had access to an AI tool in the clinic, and that briefing note helped the doctor give you better advice. It could be game-changing for India if you could build a healthcare AI for India and deploy it at national scale, and that's the vision for where Vaidya is going next.
That's amazing. And you've already started seeing people use it for, one of the use cases you mentioned is, a reactive one where something's happened in the health or wellness, incident, and you want a solution. Are you already seeing people taking it for a preventive wellness, or like you mentioned, for a longitudinal perspective, feeding it your, let's say, past 2 or 3 years blood reports and saying, tell me what's going on?
Yeah, one of the use cases, for example, a couple of years back, 2024, January, around 2 years back, I got my annual physical. I did a full day of hospital tests, etc. I had 50 plus tests, and more than 60 individual reports were produced. At the end of the day, I was supposed to go and meet a physician who was going to look at all these reports and tell me exactly what's going on with my health. And I was expecting something, for him to connect all the dots, but unfortunately he was going page by page and saying, oh, your calcium is this much, so do you do this, your blood pressure is like this, your insulin is like this, etc., etc. All piecemeal advice, but no integrated understanding of my health. So today, if you put the entire 60-page report or all the 60 individual PDFs, something should be able to see all that information and triangulate your health and tell you this is what could be happening with you. And by the way, because I have your last year's reports also, I can also show you progression of what happened. And that's really how I expect people to use, is to make it more preventative and use it as to improve your health, not just to solve a disease or an accident or anything else, right? Imminent, acute situation, but use it to more manage your lifestyle.
So it can be more predictive, is where you are right now. Yeah. But on the other hand, like this is a B2C product of yours, Vaidya.ai. In the B2B space, you've done tremendous work on the clinical side. Cure.ai. Has anybody heard of Cure.ai? Qure? So some of you. It is, I think, one of the most amazing AI success stories out of India. It's a global success story, very proudly out of India. And I'll let Srikanth tell us about it.
So Cure was born in 2016. We founded Cure. And as Fractal, we incubated Cure inside the company. And then once we also spun it out with new investors in 2020. Today, Cure has touched 37 million lives around the world. And what it does is, let's imagine tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is the world's deadliest infectious disease. More than 1 billion people have died because of tuberculosis across the world over the years. Since 1875, when it was discovered, every year it has been the largest infectious disease, killing most number of people around the world, except for 2 years. During the 2 COVID years, it's been the largest killer in the world. So tuberculosis is back in action. 1.1 million people this year will die again because of tuberculosis. So what Cure's solution does is, using a chest X-ray, By the way, this is World Healthcare, WHO approved and FDA approved. You take an X-ray, it figures out if you have TB in it, and now you can be put on a drug therapy right immediately, right? So that's the idea of Cure. It's working across 105 different countries to diagnose tuberculosis. It's also being used to diagnose for lung cancer. So when you take a chest X-ray, you may have some nodule in it. Most doctors will miss it. More than 20% of nodules are actually not seen by a doctor because they're not looking for it in the chest X-ray. Most chest X-rays are not even reported. So what Cure's diagnostic solution does is it takes the X-ray and figures out 30 to 40 different abnormalities, including TB and lung cancer. So today, Cure is being used with AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca has a very powerful lung cancer drug, which the treatment is $250,000 for the full treatment. So what Cure does is work with AstraZeneca in identifying patients who may have lung cancer early on. If you find lung cancer early, the survival odds are 70%. If you detect it late, your survival odds go down to 10%. So there's a 7x improvement in finding it out early. So therefore, what we're doing is going around the world and screening populations, identifying lung cancer patients, and then putting them on a drug therapy. So all of this work and Cure has been very powerful in saving millions of lives. So 37 million lives touched. And this last year, TiE did a study of the 100 most influential companies of 2025, and Cure was the only Indian company on that list. So it's done really well.
That's really a proud moment. Yeah? And, it's very rare to see a digital diagnostic coming out of India, getting WHO certified and US FDA approval. It's very rare. What then do you see, not just for Cure, but looking at your landscape of Cure, Vaidya, where do you see Fractal's capabilities, let's say 3 to 5 years? And I know you're in an IPO space, so you can't give us numbers or anything, but, just in terms of capabilities, yes, AI has immense possibilities, but what is real? What is really going to happen?
See, first of all, on the healthcare side, I should tell you that my dream is that India makes healthcare AI accessible to every individual in the country for free. Now just imagine if you create something like Vaidya, build India's AI reasoning model around healthcare, connect it with the Cure APIs, and then make it available to every single individual in our country in a free way, right? That's the ultimate goal. That will be amazing. That's not going to pay us any money, and Fractal is a for-profit company, so we do a lot of other things that make the money for Fractal. So Fractal is an enterprise AI company. We work with some of the largest companies on the planet, powering decisions inside the company using AI. So that's what Fractal does on an everyday basis. And today, if you think about the opportunity in AI, it is the ability to reimagine every business process with AI. So can you augment it? Can you automate it? Can you redesign it in such a way that you can significantly accelerate, improve accuracy, improve productivity, improve user experience? You can do all of that if you can reimagine every business process. So that is where Fractal has a solution called Cogentic. It's an agentic AI platform. And we work with some of the largest companies in the world in implementing and helping them reimagine a business process with AI. That's really what Fractal does. And today, if you think about where AI is going, AI has moved a lot in the last 3 years. So 2023, most of you probably started paying a lot of attention to AI after the ChatGPT moment, right? Some of us were excited about AI for 20 plus years, and we sort of trying to figure this out many years ago. But let's say the consumer excitement around AI began around 2023. So in 2023, models, the ChatGPTs of the world were essentially about being able to summarize knowledge and generate content. But the idea was it was like a very smart high school student who has read every single book on the planet, right? And therefore, he is spitting out answers very quickly. Ask any question, gives you a really good answer very quickly. But unfortunately, like with all high school students, overconfident high school students, they also make a ton of mistakes. The very high hallucination rates and so on. That was the 2023 level of tech of AI. By 2024-25, what we started seeing is AI building reasoning capabilities. Now, what is reasoning? Reasoning is the idea of being able to do things step by step, not just spit out an answer when a question is asked, but can you reflect on your own thinking? Can you do it slower, more deliberately, and therefore make fewer mistakes? Can you reflect on your own mistakes and therefore improve it? Therefore, the end product is more likely to be more thorough. For example, if in 2023 AI, if you said how many R's are in strawberry, right? That was a problem even in early 2025. Most models in the world will not be able to say how many R's are in the word strawberry. It's just kind of a really simple problem, but the way AI was built, they were not very good at solving these kinds of problems. So think of math and think of any deeper domain questions. AI started to become better in 2024-25 around these topics. That was the second. So it moved from a high school student to more like a university graduate who's deeper in a domain. In 2026 or 2025-26, where we are going is going from reasoning capabilities to agentic capabilities. Now, what is an agent? Let's just understand that a little bit. Like agent word is so misused and so overused. Maybe I can explain to you. What's the difference between an assistant and an agent? An assistant is like you telling your Siri, hey, wake me up at 7 a.m. and play me my favorite music, right? It does a pretty good job of doing that, right? If you have a playlist, it'll play the playlist at 7 a.m. But agent is different. You're telling the agent, for example, you're saying, can you wake me up every day in such a way that I get to office by 9 a.m.? Okay, make sure that I get enough sleep. Make sure that I've got high quality of sleep, and make sure that the traffic is incorporated. So what it will do is it will wake you up with knowing the traffic situation outside, knowing when you went to sleep last night, and then it may also figure out that, okay, on a Saturday and a Sunday, it doesn't have to wake you up because you're not going to office that day anyway. So these kinds of decisions, it's automatically making, because you've given it a broad responsibility, it's taking that responsibility, breaking down into simpler tasks, and managing, making those decisions, and then helping you implement that. That is an agent. So agent has agency, which means that it can make its own decisions instead of having to rely on you. And you're not completely telling it what to do. You're giving it a broad understanding. It's making a lot of assumptions and decisions based on that. So from reasoning models, we move to agentic models in 2025, 2026. And the world of AI agents is still very, very early. So a lot of excitement will happen in 26 and 27, where you will see AI agents getting better and better. But the key idea is that now we are moved from high school student to a graduate student to a working professional, someone who can work alongside you. It's entirely possible that you will have an AI avatar who is like a co-worker of yours and doing a few things really, really well and they will probably join your Teams meetings or your Zoom calls and take notes and understand what's going on and make some decisions, maybe write some code, send it for your approval. They can do all of that stuff because these agents will become your co-workers, and that's really the movement. So AI has moved from high school student to a graduate student to a co-worker in the last 3 years, and this is the direction of travel.
You said something very interesting about, if you can call it the level of intelligence of AI itself, right? And you're using the parable of education journey. In terms of some of the agents available today or agentic AI, let's address the elephant in the room, which is, human cognition then, right? MIT did a study recently, I think 2 studies actually back to back, where they scanned human brains of ChatGPT users and non-users. And they are actually showing that people who've been using any kind of AI, they are showing parts of the brain atrophying in terms of lower cognition, lower cognitive ability, emotional abilities, etc. Are you seeing agents perpetuating and making that problem even worse? Because then you're not even asking a question, you're actually delegating a part of your cognition, delegating your intelligence, outsourcing your intelligence to an agent.
See, this is one of the fears that's been there for the last 100 years, that as machines become smarter or machines do some of the things that we do, our capabilities will come down. So for example, I'm sure all of you will feel that your next generation is not really good at calculating numbers, multiplication tables. My generation and maybe previous generations were very good at remembering multiplication tables, but we no longer remember multiplication tables, and so on. So it's possible that human intellect is degrading, or because these tools are coming in, therefore we don't have to do this anymore. So this hypothesis has merit. But let's look at the data. The data on IQs is very instructive. So if you take a 100-year view of IQ studies, every 10 years, the IQ of the general population has increased by 2 to 3 points. Okay? So if this is the case, we should not be seeing increase of IQ on individual's part. So what could be happening? My sense is what's happening is that as machines take over and do other things, we use our intelligence for other purposes. We lose something, like, for example, remembering 19 into 19. Not many people remember it's 361. But I'm using my intelligence to do something else. And therefore, I'm not really losing it. I'm using it for a higher or a different purpose. So that is my guess, is that these are early days. Yes, if you completely rely on AI tools, you might lose that part of it. For example, writing. Writing was one of the most difficult things for me growing up. Writing, conceptualizing your thoughts and structuring it and writing it was very hard. Now, writing is easy. You just randomly put your thoughts into a tool, and it'll do a fantastic job of writing it in exact style that you want. So yes, you might lose some abilities to write, and you may become over-dependent on the tech to write anymore. But maybe you're using that intelligence for something else. And maybe if you really learn how to use these tools better, you'll get better. I mean, for example, growing up, there was a lot of people used to say, hey, why do you want automatic transmission on your cars? You should use the stick shift, right? Because stick shift is better, you get better mileage, et cetera, et cetera. And you're not a real driver if you're using stick shift. That was how I grew up. Now, nobody uses stick shift anymore. Everybody's using automated transmission. Tomorrow, all of us will use AI-driven cars. Like self-driving cars have become very real. Waymo is doing 50 million miles in the last 3 years, 10 million trips, 50 million miles with 0 deaths and 80% reduction in accidents. So it'll be irresponsible for human beings to drive 5 years from now, 5 to 10 years from now, because it's dangerous, unnecessary. 1 million people die every year because of road accidents. So I think it's important that we realize that where is the tech better than human beings, and seed it to the tech, and focus our energies on building where we need to really build the next level of tech or next level of things in the world.
Absolutely. I think there is a very clear case of delegating. When it began, you went from typewriter to Microsoft Word. This is the first time in human history where imagination is being outsourced, right? So as a neuroscientist, what we believe is that the last bastion of the human brain is imagination, because there is no other species on the planet. It's only the human brain. There is no other brain which can imagine a future which is a reality that does not exist. That is something only available with humans so far, right? But come agentic AI, then the agentic AI solution is actually imagining scenarios, which is, again, using imagination in a way, right? Maybe not creative imagination, how we, colloquially describe it, but imagining scenarios and looking at possible solutions, possible pitfalls. So there again, do you see a very fine line then between what is it to be, let's say, a good CEO versus an AI-backed CEO? Or tomorrow, the example you gave about, it'll be irresponsible to have drivers, humans drive cars. Let's look at one of the biggest debacles in public life in the last 6 weeks was one of the major airlines in India, right? And a top-notch board, a top-notch management sort of team, and this is what happened. Now, one could argue saying, why aren't we having AI board members? Why aren't we having independent directors which are actually just AI agents, and they would have studied 100 years of corporate America and corporate Indian history. They would know every rule and bylaw of the Securities Exchange Board of India, the stock exchange, what is proper, what is fit, etc., and sort of preempt these sort of situations. So if indeed we will be living in an era, and very soon, maybe in 2 or 3 years, 2 years of amazing agents, agentic AI, what should we then be ensuring remains with human beings in terms of decisions or the ability to pull a trigger or not pull a trigger in terms of a high-powered decision, and what shouldn't be?
Yeah. Where you began with this question, right? I was watching a Geoffrey Hinton interview. As you know, Geoffrey Hinton won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 2024, and he is one of the founders of deep learning, which is underpinning all the AI models that are being built today. He was saying that industrial revolution made human muscle power or human strength irrelevant, and to him, AI is making human intelligence irrelevant. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. He hasn't yet gone to imagination, which I think is still in the realm of humankind. And even if it's in the human realm, I think it will be heavily AI assisted, right? Because just imagine if today, when you read the Harry Potter books for the first time, you imagined the world of Harry Potter in a certain way, and then when you saw the movies, and I'm sure it was not exactly the same as you imagined, right? It was different. But now, having seen those movies, I can't unsee them, and therefore I cannot imagine how Harry Potter would be if it was not the way Warner Brothers imagined it, right? But today, if I read a book, I can let the AI imagine the book while I'm reading it, and that will actually maybe make the reading much more fun, or maybe less fun, depending on who you ask. But I think imagination will be AI assisted. Having said that, I think the part that AI will not take over in the foreseeable future is the motivation to do anything. So AI doesn't have the inherent motivation or inherent drive to solve any problem or do anything. We ask it to do it, it does it. But humans have this curiosity, the need to discover more, explore more, conquer the world. This motivation is really going to be the key to drive the world forward. And I don't think AI, at any time soon, as long as AI is not conscious, which is not likely scenario, it's not going to happen. So I think that is the last bastion, in my opinion, which is the motivation, the drive to get things done. That still will be in the human realm for a very long time.
Absolutely. The motivation and, like you said, the desire to enjoy life, right? I mean, we all want to go out and have some nice, lovely tapri chai, or, have some good gulab jamun, whatever it is. Any pleasure is very, very intricate to the human experience. Let me switch gears to your own journey, Srikanth. So you very rightly said somewhere in the last 20 minutes that you were working in the space of analytics and AI before the ChatGPT moment of AI, right? And as a fellow entrepreneur, I'm a neuroscientist. I'm in the neurotech space. When you're doing things which nobody else around you, forget about understands, but they're like, what are you doing? Like, what is this, right? So 25 years ago, when you started doing that, what was your early years experience? How are you managing this entire, existential question? That, what am I doing? Is it relevant? Will it be relevant? Right? How do I, just a basic discussion. How do I tell friends, family, in-laws, everyone, how is this meaningful? What is it? Yeah. So what was that early days like?
Yeah, actually, in some ways, I have come a full circle, because during the IPO roadshows, I realized that most of our Indian tech investors are also completely oblivious of, they think AI is just a software company, right? So, because when we started Fractal, we had to prove to everyone that we are not a software company. That it was a painful thing, because the default assumption was that if you're an Indian company doing something in tech, you are a software company. And we had to say, no, we write algorithms, we power decisions, we predict what's going to happen next. So it was very challenging, because you were establishing a whole new concept which didn't exist in the world at that time, and you still had to make money, and no one else in the world would understand what you're doing, and therefore it was challenging. But the results of what we were doing were so real, because when we started, the very first thing we did 25 years ago was to predict who's going to default on your credit cards, and therefore how to lend smarter. And we could see default rates plummeting at ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank. We built those things which really helped them a lot. And we realized that, okay, what we're doing is working. This science works. And therefore, it gives you a tremendous kick to know that, okay, here's something you figured out, the world hasn't yet figured it out, and you can do that. I'm sure you feel the same when you're building your neurotech startup, that you are onto something that the world will catch on 10 or 20 years from now. And therefore, yeah, it's exciting.
Honestly, I don't think I would have the gumption to stay in the game for 20 years and wait for them to understand. We are on year 10, and I'm lucky most of the people, they've not started to understand what we do, but they started to pay us. So I'm happy about that. But so 25 years ago, you started that. Now you're coming up with your IPO. You're going, to be listed in, 3 weeks, roughly. Tell me one defining factor in this 25-year journey where you felt that, oh my God, thank God I did this one thing or stood by this one principle or something which has stood you in these 25 years. And I'm saying this more for all the entrepreneurs and investors in this room, because we all will come across moments, however accomplished an entrepreneur, we'll all come across these moments in our life where we really have to dig deep and say, okay, should I say yes or no? Should I cover or not? And I'm sure there must have been that one, principle or one moment or something which you feel that, yeah, thank God I did that.
That's a. I can think of 3 things. Maybe
Sure.
if you allow me to say
No,
3 things,
absolutely.
I'm happy to say those. Number one is, one thing we figured out as a principle was treating people well on their way out, which was very powerful. Whether it is people who joined Fractal as employees, how we treated them when they exited, actually made a big difference, because they became the brand ambassadors of Fractal. So Fractal, today we get something like 300,000 applications to join Fractal every year, of which we hire about 1,000 to 1,500 people. So our selection rate is 1 in 200 or worse, right? So 99.5% of the people who meet Fractal to join Fractal don't eventually join Fractals. How we treat them during the interview process or after they join, when they leave, that has been very defining for us. And same is true for clients. When we lost clients, the way we treated them, the way we sort of the exit part of the relationship, how we managed it, built our brand, because these people went on to become our clients in some other organizations and so on. And same thing with investors. Every investor who came in wanted to come in from their next fund in the next few years later. So I think the first insight for me is how to treat people well on their way out. It's been game-changing, defining. It's been very helpful. Second, I would say, is entrepreneurship is an ego-crushing experience. I mean, I know all of you, all the entrepreneurs in this room already understand what I'm saying without having to think too much, because every day the world is telling you that whatever you're doing is not going to work. You're getting this feedback from your employees, or your spouse, or if your landlord, or you name it. Everybody is telling you this whole thing is not going to work. And you have to make it work given all the odds. So it can be ego crushing, and it is ego crushing, and therefore only the entrepreneurs who can cut their ego to size, Elon Musk notwithstanding, can become great entrepreneurs, right? So that's number 2. And number 3 for me is feedback. Feedback is the hardest thing in the world to receive, because I've been terrible at receiving feedback, because when somebody gives you feedback that you don't want to hear, the first thing is to resist, violently attack, or defend yourself, etc. So after going through that initial stage of not wanting to receive this feedback or dismiss it or argue against it, what I've learned over the last 25 years is to process it fully. Like, take the feedback, go process it, and then get better at the end of it. I think this receiving feedback, struggling with it, then processing it and getting better, and therefore, and I've seen that whenever I have grown as a human being, I've been able to grow the company as well. So these are the 3 things I would say: ego crushing, get rid of the ego, get feedback, and treat people well on their way out.
Those are all very, very powerful learnings. And, in his defense, I must say, when we were, having lunch and, Parijat, nudged us 2 or 3 times, ki, bhai, thoda discuss kar lo, what are you going to talk about on stage? I didn't have this specific question in mind. And, thank you for being so candid. And these are, yes, in a way, these are all things we've been taught to do. But coming from you so candidly with such deep insights, a huge round of applause for Srikanth. I've known him for a few months, and I must genuinely say, and I say this to him all the time, he's one of the most grounded individuals I've met. I don't know anybody who's on his way to becoming a billionaire who's so grounded, right? So congratulations on just being not just the entrepreneur, not just the visionary, not just the business owner, but just being on a really fine gentleman and individual that you are. I don't know if we have time to take a couple of questions from the audience. Can we? Okay, I see a hand up there. So if you can just be very brief and crisp, just give your name and your question.
Sure. Myself, Chirag Jani. I'm a tech agency leader. The question for you is that, is similarly based on the cognition that we are having, is that as of now, I would highly prefer getting a junior engineer or maybe mid-senior engineer and get them the subscription of maybe 2 or 3 or more AIs instead of hiring a fresh level graduate. The reason being that they are not able to think, they are not able to plan going forward that what the software should be doing and all. So, and due to that, it's causing a bit more of an issue of unemployment. Even though we are seeing 1% teams or more, but the unemployment issue is there as well. So what do you think about that?
That's a great question. I think it's happening in a lot of organizations where the organizational pyramids are becoming like cylinders or like diamond shaped, right? So it is happening, and it is tempting because if you take a mid-level person and equip them with AI tools, some of the junior level functions can be automated. I caution against that. I think the real value lies in doing the opposite, which is to hire a lot of very smart people at the ground level and give them tools. It might take you 6 months to a year more, but these are fresh people who have no legacy of the previous software stack or anything else. They're coming in with no baggage, and with the right AI tools, they can become amazing. So in fact, Fractal is going the other way around. We are increasing our batch size of freshers. We have doubled this year compared to last year in order to make sure that we get the smartest people who have no baggage and who can completely, embrace the AI tools right away. So that's at least, I think, where the world should be going. After some adjustment period, I think this is where I think the world will go. That's my sense.
Thanks. Who's got the mic? Okay, please go ahead. Sorry.
Hello. Myself is Daksha Shitalia. So we see the evolution of AI, like first LLM comes, then agentic workflow comes, then MCP comes to connect throughout the world. So as a IT agency now is stucking like what can be the next in the 5 year, because right now AI can able to code, AI can able to control the code. And one I can share the case study is for the Bolt. For the example, Bolt is started to develop agentic based development. And once the big company like Gemini and OpenAI release a small feature and AI kill itself your feature, like now using the anti-gravity is booming. So he destroyed the business of Bolt. So it's too much confusing, like what can be the land in 5 years. So according to you, what can be the new opportunity come to the in the era of AI?
Yeah, I think the point you're making is that AI disrupts AI industries even before it disrupts other industries, and every new progress in AI eliminates a whole host of other startups which were focused on just that part. That's absolutely true. It is happening. Now, where are the opportunities? So I think this was the kind of criticism that even Perplexity received when Perplexity was initially formed, that Perplexity is a thin layer on top of the AI foundation models, and therefore why should Perplexity exist? They don't have their own models. But you can see that Perplexity has still continued to exist and actually been very successful in spite of that. The reason is that the big moat seems to come in AI companies in distribution. If you can distribute your product better, I think it is an inherent advantage. So if you have, that's one of the reasons why Gemini will be successful one way or the other, is because it's distributed on every Android phone today, right? So what is your distribution strategy? If you can distribute, you can be successful. For example, if whatever AI India adopts and let's say deploys at population scale will automatically be successful, even if it is not the best AI in the world today. So that's number one insight. Number two insight for me is data advantage. Where do you have the depth of data that no one else has access to? If you have that access to that data, I think you can build a stronger AI business regardless of anything else. For example, if you have the deep healthcare, Cure as an example, I'll give you Cure example. Cure has access to 1 billion data sets, healthcare images around the world. 1 billion. It is the largest data set in the world. Because of which the Cure models are at an FDA level approval levels, and they're accurate beyond clinical levels, right? All the research papers and studies have shown that Cure models are beating the average radiologist easily and even meeting the best radiologist. That is because Cure has advantage of the data. So that's the second thing, is pick a place where you have access to proprietary and deep data sets. That's the second one. Third is, which is the place where you have the maximum understanding of the business problem, the context, and the full business process. The more you are able to solve a very deep and narrow problem, the chances of success are going to be higher. The more generic you are, the chances of success go down unless you have billions of dollars of funding. Most people don't have access to billions of dollars of funding. So if you have access to only millions of dollars of funding, pick a narrower problem. So you decide, for example, don't say I'll improve sales productivity. Everybody's improving sales productivity. That's just too broad a problem to solve. Don't say I'll improve sales productivity for healthcare. Even that may be too broad. If you want to say, I want to improve sales productivity of pharma representative, that may be starting to get there. And then also specify what part of the cycle are you going to participate in. Okay, I'm going to help them in doing better prospecting. So if you fully triangulate the problem that you're solving at a sufficient level of detail, and then you have a lot of context there, then you have a chance of success. The more broad you try to be, I think the lower the chance of success. So that's how I think I would find some areas of investment.
That's great advice. I think this is more like startup 101 for AIs. Huh? Kiran wanted to ask a question. Can we have the mic here just once?
Thank you. How are you changing and driving the cultural change to think product first? And second is, are your clients ready, or the large enterprises ready to adopt products straight away? Or is there still a big service element before they become product ready?
Yeah, in terms of moving from a services first to a product company, I think first is that the big change is in a services setup, you're essentially saying your very specific problem is of most importance to me. I'm going to solve that very specific problem, and I will custom build the whole thing for you. Whereas in a product setup, you're saying, I know how this problem is going to be solved. I have done all the thinking. I'm 2 or 3 steps ahead of where the world needs to be. And by the way, I'm willing to adjust it a little bit in order to meet your needs. There's a huge difference in the mindset, who's leading it, and how much of the product thinking has already gone into it. So part of that comes from deep R&D. So Fractal spends about 7% of revenue in R&D, and that is one of the ways in which we're, a product company typically spends 14% of revenue in R&D. Like if you think of Google, Palantir, Microsoft, they all spend 14% of revenue in R&D. Services companies, most of them spend 0% of revenue in R&D. So Fractal has moved to about 7, which is sort of midpoint between a product and a service company in terms of R&D spends. I think, so increasing your R&D spends being more confident and more prescriptive. As a product company, you're more confident, more prescriptive. You're telling the world about what the world should be. And therefore, you have to be not just 1, 2, but 3 steps ahead of where the client is. Otherwise, why should they buy into your vision if it's not vision, it's not far enough? So you have to think more visionary, you have to invest in R&D, and you have to be more confident and more prescriptive in what you do. So that's really some of the ways in which we are changing our team. And the way we are doing it is not by trying to change the entire 6,000 people who work at Fractal, but to create a 300 people R&D and products team, which is building out this product at scale.
Hello, sir.
We'll take that one question there, the gentleman, and then one more, and then we'll end this session.
I think if I'm the deepest domain expert on a topic, my biggest challenge today is twofold. Number one, my challenge is how do I make sure the whole world knows about me? Because frankly, I have limited time, 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, and the world needs much more of my expertise than the world is currently getting. And how does the world get to know about my expertise? I think that's a very important problem that a domain expert needs to solve. And second is, how do I stay a domain expert? No matter which topic you pick up, the half-life of knowledge is 3 years or less. So being a domain expert is a good thing, but only it has a limited shelf life unless you know how to get better every day. So if you I would say that use AI for solving both. Samir, to the point you made about Marshall Goldsmith, I'll just quickly describe for the people who don't know this. So Marshall Goldsmith is one of the leading executive coaches in the world. He's called the #1 executive coach in the world for several years. He has coached people like Alan Mulally of Ford and Boeing, as well as currently coaches Albert Bourla of CEO of Pfizer. So he turned 75 years old. So 3 years ago, he said, can you build an AI coach for me? So we built an AI coach called Marshall Goldsmith.ai. It's free for the whole world. And it's like a Guru Dakshina from Fractal to Marshall, because he's been my coach as well. And now Marshall is now able to reach out to hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, because he has implemented his own AI for the world, right? In that way, he has improved his distribution. And now he thinks that, okay, even if I'm not around, like Marshall at 75 keeps thinking, okay, what if I'm not around, right? And he says that today, Marshall Goldsmith.ai is better than Marshall in answering his questions, because it's much more consistent, it doesn't forget, etc., etc. So this is one way to kind of solve for that. Second is, I would use AI to even learn and be abreast of the topic. Think of health, a doctor, right? Today, million papers are published every year in medicine. 1 million papers published in medicine every year around the world. How many papers as a human being can I read to, even if you take a deep topic, dermatology or carcinogen, whatever, skin cancer, or go deeper and deeper and deeper, you still have thousands of papers published every year, and most of us have probably a couple of hours a day to catch up on research. So can you use these AI tools to learn faster and therefore stay abreast of the tech? So these are the two ways in which, as a domain expert, I would continue to use AI.
Thanks. Just the last question there.
Hello, sir. Actually, we are working in the sector of healthcare, and after you described about Vedya and Cure, so my question is that, as if I understood clearly, that you are working for patients, and in my tech lab, we are building a solution for doctors. So it's basically AI-assisted longitudinal clinical memory in psychiatry. So as you pointed out, as the narrower and customized is the solution, the chances are high of success. So how you see this? Is it better than Vedya, or is it complementing it, or anyway? I think that's my question.
See, if you, I mean, look, I'm not an expert on this topic by any stretch of the imagination, but if you are thinking of mental health and going deep into that, I'm sure the very first thing is that your AI should know the DSM-5 completely, right? Should fully understand it, and should be able to provide clinical advice, maybe prevent somebody from, having, let's say, self-harm thoughts and things like that, which are things where you have to be distributed in such a way and helpful for every use case of mental health today. And your biggest issue is that the more generic you stay, ChatGPT is going to be as good or better than what you can create at any point of time. So you have to see from a ChatGPT standpoint, how much more incremental are you, either by the way you're bringing in new data or the way you've imagined how you fit into the workflows of the doctor and the patient and so on. I think if you can figure that out, the workflows and or the data, I think you can have a moat. And otherwise, otherwise I think ChatGPT is going to get better. So you have to be in such a way that when ChatGPT improves, your solution becomes more relevant, not less relevant. I think that's your framework in your mind is ChatGPT is going to get better in mental health. It's already the best or the biggest mental health resource in the world already, by far, right? So your question to you is that when ChatGPT 6.0 comes in, should you be scared of it or should you be excited about the release of the product? If you're excited about the release of the product, then you have the right vision for what you're building. If you're scared of what it will build, then revisit.
That is fantastic, Srikanth. I think what you just said is what every entrepreneur, not just building in AI, but anything in software, anything in product, anything in services should be concerned about on whether ChatGPT is going to take away the AI wrapper that they've got or the SaaS service, SaaS product that they've got, anything. But on that note, a huge round of applause for Srikanth Velamakanni. Thank you so much. You've been very candid, very insightful, and I'm sure the audience is leaving this room, far enlightened than when they came in. Thanks so much, Srikanth. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, I think very beautifully summarized. What a wonderful session and great insights. Let's have once again a huge round of applause. And I'll request Mr. Kumar to please give a small token of thanks to our speaker. I mean, thank you once again, sir. I mean, you've came all across in the midst of so much of work along just to share your knowledge. And as I once told that, I read it and I really believe it, that true leader is not just the person who's creating success, but somebody who's so willing to share it with everyone. Thank you so much, sir, once again. Thank you once again. Thanks.